All right, let's edit a portrait in Photoshop to make the readable shapes more simple. So before you start, you're going to want to make sure that you've downloaded the photo that you want to edit and that you've opened Photoshop. So here we are, Photoshop is open, and I'm going to go instead of to new file to open because I want to open my picture. My photo was in my downloads folder. And I had it all set up. So to start, I want to make sure that I've got a new layer that I'm working on. So I'm going to come down here to the layers menu and I'm going to right click or double tap on the background layer. And it's going to give me this little menu where I'm going to say duplicate layer. So now when I'm making edits, I'm on the background copy. Just in case I mess something up, I can always just delete that and start over again. So from here, I need to crop my photo so that it's the right proportions. So I'm going to come over to my toolbar and I'm going to choose the crop tool. And then I'm going to go up to the tool menu bar here and I'm going to change this to be a 6:9 ratio. So you can tell mine's already set up, but pretend like it wasn't. You would type in here 6 and 9. Let's say you had a landscape photo instead of a portrait-oriented photo. You could flip these, but you need it to be 6:9. So now that I've got the proportion set up, I want to try and make sure that I've got the picture cropped so that the face of the person is touching or almost touching on at least 3 sides. So I want to keep this little detail of the paintbrush and the pencil in here because I'm an art teacher and it tells something a little bit about me. I think that's fun. But I've zoomed it in so the chin is almost touching, this side of the face is touching, and really this side isn't very far away either. And that's important because the details, places like the eye, if you don't have it really cropped close, they're so tiny, it's just really, really hard to paint. So almost feels awkward because you're cropping it so tight, but I promise it'll look way better that way. So now I'm going to confirm my crop just by clicking on another tool. So I picked the move tool up here and I'm going to make a levels adjustment on my image. So I took this, didn't have the best lighting. I want to increase the contrast. So I'm going to go to image, adjustments, and levels. Some of you may have taken your picture with our studio lights at school, and then maybe you don't need to make a levels adjustment. Maybe you already have great contrast. But if you brought a picture from home, then I would definitely recommend opening this up and at least hitting auto on here because it's going to give you some really good contrast. So these little slider bars can even make that contrast more obvious if you move them in towards the middle. This black one, this little black arrow is the shadows, and the white one is the highlights, and the middle gray here is the midtones. So I'm just going to move this around until I feel like I've got very obvious highlights, midtones, and shadows. You don't want to make them so bright or so dark that you start losing detail. So wherever you settle, make sure you can still see like the texture in that area. Let's say like maybe right there. And the same in the shadows. Okay, so I'm going to click OK. And then now I need to change my photo to black and white. So I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, and this time I'm going to choose black and white. And I think that auto does a great job, but if you want to play with these sliders to get more contrast, you can. So for instance, the blue slider is going to change anything that's blue in the picture, like the wall behind my head here. The blue behind me is getting lighter or darker. Kind of liked how it was though. And you could go through and you could adjust all of those a little bit or a lot. Again, you're trying to get a high contrast image that still has lots of detail in it. Let's go ahead and hit auto, okay. And then now we're gonna use a filter to simplify those readable shapes. So up here, go to filter, and then down to filter gallery. And when you open this up for the first time, it's gonna be all compressed like this, and it'll probably be zoomed in a lot. So I like seeing my whole picture. So I'm gonna come down here to this little zoom menu and I'm gonna say fit in view. That way I can see my whole self. And then I'm gonna expand artistic and I'm gonna click on cutout. And let's just click on something else and then click on cutout so you can see what will happen. Your image is gonna be split into these more simplified shapes. So it also gives you some menus over here. And the first one on the top is the number of levels. The levels are, each level is a color. It's going to end up being color in your final painting. So you need to pick between 4 and 6 levels depending on your image. So if we try out 4, this is what my image looks like. It's okay. Looks like maybe we could mess with some edge simplicity and just see what happens. Okay, that's making it sort of have less detail. This is definitely better with a little bit more detail. And then same with edge fidelity. You can kind of pull it up and pull it down and see what you think. So there's what 4 colors would look like. And then I can just type right in here and here's what 5 colors would look like. And again, if I wanted to mess with the edge simplicity or edge fidelity, I can. And finally, here's what 6 looks like. So if we do 6 and then we simplify the edges a little bit, I kind of like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. And then my last step is that I want to sharpen my image. And this is going to be another filter. So sharpening is going to help and make it easier to see the edges. It puts a white or a black pixel along anything that it senses, that Photoshop senses as an edge. And it'll just help make it easier to trace, make it easier to draw, make it easier to paint. So I'm going to go to filter in the menu bar and then sharpen and smart sharpen. And this will give me this little preview window that's zoomed in very close. That's how you want to look at anything you're sharpening. So I'm going to scoot it to an area that I think is really important, like the eye, just so I can see the effect better. And the default is going to automatically sharpen it a little, so I just turned it down here so that you can kind of see the difference. But I like to pull it up on the amount. I'm going to go with like 250-ish. And then I also like to adjust the radius a little bit. And I'm going to try toggling this preview button on and off. See if I can see the difference. So on here, I can really see it. On here, it's not showing very much. Sometimes you have to sort of move this out of the way to be able to see your picture. But that's definitely a little bit sharper. So I'll click OK. And my picture is ready to save. So I need to save a JPEG to turn into Google Classroom. And I'm also going to save a Photoshop file in case I needed to do this again for some reason. So I'll go up and let's save the JPEG first. I'm going to say File, Save a Copy. And I'm going to title it last name, first initial, and then underscore portrait or portrait edit. I'm going to make sure that I pay attention to where I save my file, and then I'm going to click Save. So it's going to ask you about some file quality. Usually the default of these settings are just fine. All right, so I've saved my JPEG. Now let's go ahead and save the Photoshop file in case for some reason I need to come back and change what I've done. So I'll go File, Save As, again, or J_portrait. And this is set to a Photoshop file. I've paid attention to where I want the file to save. And we'll go ahead and save it. Okay, so from here, you can close Photoshop, turn in your photo, print it out, and you're ready to paint.